Another piece of news that came out today. Doge said that they saved $8 billion. Guess what? Math matters. They misread a couple of numbers, 8 million. Guess what also we found out? That these brilliant 19 to 25-year-olds, these teenagers who we have no idea about their expertise, their experience, no accountability, no oversight, they accidentally fired hundreds of federal employees who look over our nuclear weapon stockpile, and now they're desperately trying to rehire them.
Wajahat Ali joined a panel on Piers Morgan Uncensored that included Republican Dan Kaw, journalist Glenn Greenwald, and former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. They discussed Doge and its implications. We're about to review some clips from this panel, and I'll share my thoughts on each. Let's dive into their discussion and unpack what's going on with Doge.
Okay, let's just switch gears for the rest of this debate to Doge, this new word that everyone's talking about. I was watching Sean Hannity interview Donald Trump and Elon Musk together last night. It's very interesting, actually. I want to play a clip from that where Trump talks about people aged 300 years old getting Social Security payments.
We have millions and millions of people over 100 years old. Everybody knows that's not so. We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say, but we're figuring it out. Now, the good thing about Social Security and what I read is if you take all of those numbers off, because they're obviously fraudulent or incompetent, but if you take all of those millions of people off Social Security, all of a sudden we have a very powerful Social Security with people that are 80 and 70 and 90, but not 200.
That was actually from a press conference he gave. He expanded on it with Sean Hannity and went on to say that there are people 100, 200, even 300-year-old getting benefits because of the way the system is failing. People stay on there, they're put on the wrong age and so on. And Elon Musk expanded on it as well. And I'll start with you, Wajahat, here. Elon Musk has become a bit of a bogeyman to the left in all this. But I got to say, when I hear him talking about getting all these brilliant young minds he's got to basically go through with algorithms, all the federal spending, the stuff they're finding, if I was American, I'd be like, well, good, get stuck in, find me more of this ridiculous abuse. Do you have a problem with it?
Yeah, so your producer should have updated you with facts with that Social Security nonsense. They didn't know how to read the data. People who are 200 years old and 150 years old aren't getting Social Security benefits, right? According to their own data, apparently 86% of recipients are fraudulent. No, they're misreading the data. This is why you don't have 19 to 25-year-olds without any experience now having access to our tax documents, to our Social Security numbers, to our Treasury Department. This is why you have to have oversight. Also, another piece of news that came out today. Doge said that they saved $8 billion. Guess what? Math matters. They misread a couple of numbers, 8 million. Guess what also we found out? That these brilliant 19 to 25-year-olds, these teenagers who we have no idea about their expertise, their experience, no accountability, no oversight, they accidentally fired hundreds of federal employees who look over our nuclear weapon stockpile, and now they're desperately trying to rehire them. You know what they also did, these brilliant people? Because apparently, according to Stephen Miller and according to government filings, right, that lawsuit, Elon Musk does not run Doge. So we still don't know who actually runs Doge, which should be pretty important, who runs Doge. But also what we found out is they're desperately trying to rehire the people overseeing bird flu. So they're firing people, trying to rehire them. And right now in America, Piers, there are several people not involved in our FAA. Right now, according to the Rolling Stone yesterday, an FAA member said there are 5 people in our Federal Aviation Agency doing the work of 14 people. And if you've seen in the past month, airplanes are going down in America. So tell me how this is making us great again. Are you not worried? I'm worried. The last question I want to ask, and maybe the Republican here, Dan Crenshaw, knows the answer. Who's running Doge, number one? And what is actually Elon Musk's role? Because yesterday when Donald Trump was asked, he said, you can call him whatever you want. He's a patriot. That is concerning to me.
Okay, Dan.
Wajahat Ali made a compelling point on Piers Morgan Uncensored about the lack of fact-checking on the show. He criticized Piers Morgan for presenting information as factual without proper verification, a practice that dangerously mirrors Donald Trump's approach to information. Trump has been known to make wildly inaccurate statements, such as claiming there are people 300 years old receiving Social Security or that immigrants were consuming pets. claims that have no basis in reality but are accepted as truth by many of his followers. This kind of misinformation creates a significant challenge for those who live in the reality-based community, as they must constantly correct these falsehoods. The assertion that deceased individuals are collecting Social Security checks is another example of such unfounded claims. With no one to oversee or fact-check these statements from figures like Trump and Doge, these narratives unfortunately start to be perceived as factual. This perpetuates a cycle of misinformation that distorts public perception and complicates rational discourse.
I'm part of the legislative branch, not the executive, so you can ask that to the administration. But look, anybody who works for the executive, I'm giving you an answer. Everybody who works for the executive works for the executive. What Elon Musk has done is he's put a much more famous face to it, so I think it's created this boogeyman effect. In the end, this is the kind of thing that would happen with an incoming Republican administration, no matter what. There's a desire to cut waste. There's a desire to go into it. I wasn't sure what Doge was going to do. I've been somewhat impressed with what niche they've actually found, which is data analytics. Now, are they going to make mistakes along the way, misinterpret some things? Yes, but we live in a transparent and open society, and then those things get corrected, which is what's happening. You literally describe some problems that happen and then the corrections that are being made. I'm okay with that because something has to happen with the bloat of the federal government. I think there's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be speed bumps. But I think the broader intent here is noble. Yes, you have to look at the data correctly, but nobody has even bothered to try. And you do need those young software engineers to be able to do that. And then you do need people who are seasoned policymakers who understand exactly how the system works to figure out what the policy is. I don't think it's fair to say that Doge fires people. The executive fires people who work for the executive. And that's how it should be.
Dan, be honest, how would you have felt if it was a Democrat administration and they brought in, say, Mark Zuckerberg in his previous incarnation as a liberal, and he was doing what Elon Musk is doing? Would you feel uncomfortable about it?
I was very uncomfortable when the last Democrat administration was working with social media companies to censor people online.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, but that's also apples and oranges.
You're
talking about firing federal employees who work for the federal government.
Having a multi-billionaire tech bro in there with any administration, is it right?
A lot of their cabinet secretaries are people who are just really rich people who donated to their campaign. This is nothing new. And look, and if somebody has a history of going into organizations and making them more efficient, Elon Musk does have that history. It remains to be seen whether it works with the bureaucracy. That's why I didn't know what they were going to do. I have been impressed with the niche they found, which is purely data analytics. Now they need to interpret that data correctly and then figure out what policy measures take place after that. They're not in charge of the policy measures, and I think that's what a lot of left-wing media gets wrong. If somebody gets fired at DOE, talk to the Secretary of Energy. On the FAA thing. I mean, Sean Duffy, he's the Secretary of Transportation, just put out, look, everybody calm down.
All right, let's break this down because it's getting pretty wild on Piers Morgan Uncensored. So Dan Shaw is out there saying that Doge isn't firing people, right? But then Elon Musk hops on X and drops a bombshell, saying that federal employees better start justifying their jobs weekly via email, or they're basically resigning themselves. Sounds like firing to me, doesn't it? And Crenshaw? He's brushing it off like these are just oopsies, the kind you might make in any business or government operation. But here's where it gets real. Wajahat Ali brings up how they mistakenly reported $8 billion in cuts when it was actually $8 million. That's not just a typo. That's a massive blunder. And let's not even start on the potential disaster of mistakenly firing folks responsible for nuclear weapons safety. These aren't just rounding errors. These mistakes could literally cost lives. Then you've got Piers Morgan, who, as always, seems ready to back Trump no matter what and dismiss anything the left has to say. We didn't even touch on what Glenn Greenwald or Rod Blagojevich had to say because there's just so much to unpack with Ali and Crenshaw's exchange. So what do you think about all this? Drop a comment, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. This is Cole Talk, and I'll catch you in the next video for more unfiltered takes on these chaotic developments.